This whole podcast, NAS has been trying to press, we've really been trying to talk about the negativity and everything bad about social media, but
itong si Will greedy masyado sa views, walang pakialam sa paligid, sa mundo, walang kwenta. NAS Daily called Will Dasovich
a dormant news channel.
Will Dasovich is a coward. Pathetic. Let's get real. Burn. NAS Daily canceled Will Dasovich.
I hate social media.
So me and NAS Daily release a podcast on the topic of social media in the Philippines, and it was a fun, friendly conversation between the two of us on how social media has impacted our life and what's the future of social media. Within less than a day, there were 6,000 or 7,000 shares on Facebook, all positive feedback of people enjoying the discussion between two creators around navigating their way through the constantly evolving nuances of social media. For the people who listened to the podcast, there wasn't anything that seemed controversial or that was likely to cause outrage until Twitter. So ABS-CBN News tweeted an article that they wrote about a small snippet of the podcast where me and NAS talk about our disagreement when it comes to vlogging politics. And in that they posted some of my quotes, which if you don't listen to the full podcast, then it kind of strews out of context. And then mix that in with Twitter, and then people start to alter the narrative to a point where it becomes false information and you start to distance from the truth. These little quotes start to go viral on Twitter and start trending, and this is all from people who didn't even listen to the podcast. So for those who aren't up to date, which is probably every single person that is not on Twitter because there was no controversy or anything else on other platforms, let me fill you in really fast. So looking at some of the quotes tweeted that got the most attention, at some point in the podcast, I said that
I kind of have a golden rule is I try to limit and not talk about politics because you're always going to upset a huge group of people.
Now, out of context, that can look bad, and just add in some of NAS's quotes to it. At one point, NAS says,
when something major happens in your country, you will be forced to talk about it.
Like if the Philippines right now declares war on China, China declares war on the Philippines.
You're not going to go and make a vlog saying, hey guys, let's play video games. I don't see it. Impossible. I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're a dormant news channel.
This is because we had an argument that NAS believes all vloggers are news channels. But when you look at these statements on Twitter in just font without hearing tone of voice, paired with tweets with their own political agenda, then this can alter the narrative and cause controversial chaos, which is a lot of the time seems to happen a lot on Twitter. Itong si Will greedy masyado sa views kaya di ko pinapanood mga YouTube channel niya, walang pakialam sa paligid, sa mundo. Influencer ka, pat nandyan ka, kung wala ka na ang boses, wala pa itong kwenta, gusto mag-gain lang ng views like other YouTuber. Sad to say, hindi talaga influencer, full-time job ang tingin nila sa pagpapa-famous nila. Buti pa siya. Okay, but he spilled the tea. Stan NAS Daily. When NAS Daily called Will Dasovich a dormant news channel. Pinapayaman lang natin yung mga Pinoy vloggers kaya ang dami din gusto maging vlogger pero yung content kung ano-ano lang. Will Dasovich is a coward. Only in the Philippines that influencers or celebs stay out of politics or become a pathetic inferior. Let's get real. Losing money. Burn. NAS Daily canceled Will Dasovich. So for someone who just chanced upon Twitter, didn't listen to the podcast, and just sees all these posts, it's easy to assume NAS was scolding me or giving me a lecture or exposing me for being greedy, as if this was some sort of hostile argument where he was telling me that what I'm doing is wrong, where in reality this was a fun conversation with no malice. Two friends discussing the trajectory of social media news.
This whole podcast, we've really been trying to talk about the negativity and everything bad about social media, but in the end, the positive stuff has just flourished over it.
And how it'll be consumed moving forward.
What you and me do is we create videos that will influence people to have a brighter outlook on life. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Well, I think this podcast turned positive because of you.
A few misplaced quotes out of context, and your entire credibility, your character, and your whole persona can be destroyed just like that. The huge twist to all of this is that this podcast happened months ago. These quotes were not in direct response to the ABS-CBN shutdown because it hadn't even happened yet. When NAS made that now famous quote that if the Philippines were to go to war with China, then you wouldn't just be playing video games, I agreed with him. I agreed with that statement. But people leave that part out that I agreed with him. Instead, they followed it up with a statement I said earlier in the podcast about how I try and not talk about politics on social media. That's essentially how this whole controversy was created. And it's biased journalism and taking words out of context. You can literally cancel anyone and discredit them if you take words out of context. And why I stated that I don't like to talk about politics in the first place is that very reason, that people can use what you say and spin it for their own political ambitions and self-interest. They can create a false narrative and then wrongfully use that against you. I wish that ABS-CBN was running for the thousands of unemployed, for the friends and family of mine who currently work for the network, and to be honest, even for my own personal interests, I wish it was running for myself because I work with ABS-CBN and I love the people who I work with. Of course, Will and most vloggers won't say anything about politics, much less about ABS-CBN demise. Traditional media like TV networks are actually competitors of vloggers. TV's loss would be vlogs' gain. It's not true. Traditional media like TV is not competitors of YouTube, and I actually made an entire vlog about that called Artistas Ruining YouTube. It's a very concise piece that answers all questions about that type of topic. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. Now, one of the biggest criticisms I was getting and altered narratives of this whole thing is that I'm an advocate of toxic positivity and that I portray to be happy at all times even though I'm not. I pretend that nothing is wrong when I should be showing the negative aspects of life and not have everything to be puro happy. These statements are far from the truth, and it's obvious that the people who were tweeting this type of stuff, they haven't seen my vlogs. The last videos on my channel have dark aspects to them. They emphasize struggle, challenge, and the barriers we face in life that we must overcome. My vlog carefully details what myself and others have to go through on a day-to-day basis to obtain happiness. I've always explained techniques or particular ways of life to put yourself in the best situation possible. I've been humbled by the friends who messaged me and actually took the time to converse with me, get my thoughts on the issue, and not just read a misleading headline and then come to a conclusion. After listening, it's ultimately up to them to form their opinion, but at least they have the information to do so. Intertwining vlogging with current affairs or the news is something I rarely do on this channel because that's not the type of content that people come here for. But I do understand that I have the responsibility to not just inform myself, but to help bring social change for those who do come here to watch my content. I always read the comments and feedback in these videos, and ultimately I create what you guys want to consume. So please leave a comment down below. We're always going to make mistakes in life, but the important thing is that we learn from them. And just like I'm willing to keep an open mind and understand different perspectives, that's the only thing I'd expect from you as well. For those who don't have Twitter or just want to be spared from the entire toxicity of this mess, here is some insight on one of the more viral tweets that are going around. Will Dasovich is Filipino-American but never had heart for Filipinos. He's only Filipino because he's convenient for his career as a YouTube vlogger. There, I said it. Imagine he earns millions from us Filipinos for watching his vlogs, tapos he had this audacity to tell us about his golden rule. This screams I'm privileged, why should I care? To me, Will, mas mapusong Pinoy para si NAS daily. So, my Pinoy culture becomes discredited. They claim that all I care about is money and judge my entire character based on a quote that they saw. So NAS made a really good statement regarding this whole issue, and he said, if you want to form an opinion, I would advise you to not do it based on quotes, but based on research. If you want to have a real debate backed with valid points, I'll respond to you here in the comments. I challenge all these people who are so eager to rush onto Twitter and just clip a quote to go out and do some research. Actually come up with something well thought out and comment it here, whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, and I will listen and I'll learn from you. We all have the right to an opinion unless it even in the slightest way goes against others. If you want to make a real change, you won't be able to do it through bullying someone into agreeing with you or trying to cancel them. Attacking someone that has never even harmed you is never going to get them on your side. Difference should lead to discussion first, way before division. Freedom of speech is one of the most important rights we hold as a society, and that includes the right to not voice out your political beliefs to others. This doesn't mean that we don't care or we're not affected. It just means that discussing politics on social media is pure chaos, and it's inviting a lot of malicious individuals into your life. This isn't a recent statement, nor was it anything new about me when I said that I try to stay away from politics and religion when it comes to social media. I'm happy to discuss politics with friends, family, or anyone willing to have that discussion. But in the space of a toxic area like Twitter, I contemplate, is there a real change that can even happen there? And is it even worth my time and my mental health? Which mental health on that platform is something that's just completely disregarded. You know, the whole idea about what I do is not about pretending to live in this bubble, but it's about arming myself to be able to deal with the things outside of it. That's the meaning of wellness and what I try to promote. Initially, I didn't intend on responding to this because the issue had become so far-fetched, and it's simply not worth my energy to argue with someone who doesn't even want to make a proper attempt to back their claims. But after me and NAS chatted about this whole issue, he reminded me what we said in the actual podcast. We both just want to do something beneficial to the world, whether it involves politics in our conversations or not. He told me that this is the best form of controversy and it's the most positive thing you can get canceled for. I reflect on my flaws and I make the conscious effort to improve on them. I recognize that I hold certain privileges, and in the future I can make a better effort in educating myself so that I could reciprocate that to those who follow me. Social media is still a new and constantly evolving platform, and we can talk all day about content, influencers, creators, and whether or not they should be considered news platforms. But what is not debatable, something we all can agree on, is that real news agencies should not report biased news that fits any particular agenda. Everyone, including myself, should gather as much information as possible, educate themselves, form an opinion, and then be able to respect those of others.